lesson. I'm Professor Smith and Wesson. Just a witness me spitting lyrics without a question. It's like pouring holy water on you, it's a blessing. Better stand down, AK Packer stand down. Blam blam, leave you sleeping under sand pound. Came to serve and mass murder the damn crowd. I'm still working while you standing with your hand down. I'm seeing red, they gon' find your man dead, while I'm cheap for some sticky as a Spider-Man web. Got some angry bitches trying to give me mad head. Laws trying to keep my hands up behind my damn head. I'm still solo, I don't need photos. Got bricks on my hands like Margarito when he beat.
Welcome back to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, TheJVaz, and you're watching The J-Vaz Show, music and entertainment at its finest. We got a special guest with us today from Rosenberg, Texas, Richmond, Texas. Before we take you there, make sure you follow us on all the social media pages at The J-Vaz Show. Check out the website, TheJVazShow.com. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also, make sure you subscribe to us if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. Let's get right into this. As I mentioned earlier, from Rosenberg, Texas, Twin City is what y'all call it, right, out there?
Yes, sir. Twin
Bunz.
City. What's good, baby?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Shit, I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
Glad to be here, man.
I told you this off camera, man. It's pretty cool to have you on here, just because, like I said, I've been keeping up with your music for years, and you know, especially, like I said, I started keeping up with you back in 2008, and then once you joined, you know, started working with GT and them, it was like I started jamming to your shit a lot more. And, you know, I'm familiar with your work. I'm familiar with your music. So to have you on here is pretty dope, man.
Appreciate you jamming, man.
So, man, let's get right into this, man. Let's talk about your history, man. You're from Richmond or from Rosenberg? Or
No, I'm from Rosenberg.
Rosenberg.
I'm from Rosenberg, yeah. I was born in Galveston, actually, and I moved to Rosenberg pretty much when I was young, and I've been there pretty much my whole life, man.
Yeah.
So I've lived in Houston here and there, but mostly Rosenberg.
What was it like growing up in Rosenberg?
Oh, man, it was fun. But I mean, it's totally different now, but when I was growing up, you know, we had a little tough time with my father and my mom. You know, they had a little thing going on, so I had to deal with that as the oldest of four. But in Rosenberg, it's pretty much the same thing all the time. You know everybody in the city, you know what I mean? We outside all the time, so it wasn't too bad, man. It's cool. Man, it helped me become person I am, you know what I mean? Going through the stuff I did in Rosenberg,
Were you always involved in hip hop, or how did this, you know, love for music come about?
Well, not really hip hop. I'm a huge like rock and roll fan. Like my favorite band is Metallica. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I originate from musically, but I can't play any instruments, man. So you know what I'm saying? So the only thing I could do was rap. So once I started trying to figure out like I wanted to make music, that was the thing I could do. So that's when I focused on my time in the rap. And that was probably like maybe 95, man, 96, first time I heard Screw and shit like that. You know what I mean?
So maybe that explains your aggressive style, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Obviously you said, you know, Metallica is your favorite band. Who have been your influences, you know, coming up in the rap game?
Oh, man, a lot of my first music, a lot of my first projects, I had like a real fast way of rapping. I would rap and I was real aggressive, like you just mentioned. And a lot of that comes from like Bone Thugs and Harmony, Do or Die, bands like that. That's who I was a huge Bone Thugs fan coming up, like real big on Bone Thugs. And that's how I kind of mimicked. I guess that's how my style was created. You know what I'm saying? Listening to those two and trying to add my own flavor to it, and it just became me. You know what I mean?
So when you first got started, before Lifeline Records, we'll talk about Lifeline here in a second. Before that, were you signed to another label? Were you just doing
No, man.
Mixtapes?
Before Lifeline, I was actually just freestyling, man. I was going to every party and every like open mic and everything that was going on, and I was trying to freestyle battle anybody who thought they could rap. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of how the Mexican Mike, which was a close friend of mine, how we started Lifeline, because he ended up getting one of my CDs through that. I was pressing up small CDs and just like writing my number on them, just writing my cell phone number and with a Sharpie on them hoes and passing them out. You know what I mean? And one of them CDs got back to my boy, and that's how it went from me just freestyling everywhere, trying to make a name for myself that way, to actually going in the studio. You know what I mean?
So you said Mexican Mike and yourself with Lifeline. how did this connection come about? But obviously they got a hold of your CD.
Yes.
But how did this whole journey with Lifeline come about? And
Man, it was basically just like that, man. Like a lot of people, they think it might be like a real huge story about it, but it's basically just as simple as that. Like I was just putting music out. I was getting popular around my city. Some of my music got into their hands. They listened to it, which is Mike Gallegos, a friend of mine, and he had little businesses running, and he had a little bit of extra paper. He was trying to invest and do things. And one day he just pulled up to my house. I didn't even meet. I never knew him. You know what I mean? He just pulled up to my house, knocked on the door. I came outside. He asked me if I was Alex. You know what I mean? Which is my first name. I said, yeah. We got in the car, and from that moment, we just chopped it up. You know what I mean? We talked, and I had already been approached by a couple people the same way he did. So I try to like tell him, man, you know what? Just well, I need this, this, and this, and he went and did all that for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how I knew he was serious. So it's from that moment, I focused on my time and whatever he had going on, whatever projects he wanted me to do, I was doing them. You know.
What was the feeling like seeing somebody willing to invest?
Oh man, that was great.
Man.
That was great. He's the one that took me to like Hawk and you know, Kiki, ESG, C-Note, all these people I had on my first projects was because of Mexican Mike. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He knew C-Note, and that was like great feeling just being in the studio with some of those guys that I used to jam. I knew all the music, you know what I mean? And like I started freestyling because of them. So that was great. It was a great feeling, that whole journey with that. Then also we linked up with another friend of mine named Troy Reese, and that meant we all make Lifeline, me, Troy, and Mexican Mike. It's just that Troy came in the game a little bit after Mexican Mike did. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's when I met him. But we all invested in, and I think, like, I wouldn't take that time back for nothing, man. I had a great time on the way doing all that. It was fun, man. It was a great experience.
So what happened with Lifeline Records?
Well, Lifeline was like, we were real street niggas. We were really doing things in the neighborhood. So like being able to stay free, that was a big issue for us because we just started Lifeline and I just started rapping. Like I said, I was just doing it. Yeah. When we started seeing I was selling mixtapes and things were going in the right direction, we were already like D-boys, you know what I mean? So it was kind of hard to like, differentiate what was more important. Yeah. And so in the process of realizing, damn, we got something here, some of my niggas caught cases, you know what I mean? They had to go do some time. And that's what basically stopped Lifeline. And we put 2 or 3 CDs out, I believe. Then they caught those cases. And they went and did their time. And that kind of slowed down everything because at that time, I was by myself. I was a little bit younger. And they were the financial backing that was pushing me, you know what I mean? And when they left, I had to do it all by myself. So that kind of slowed down things to the point where I was going back out to doing open mics again just to keep my craft sharp. And that's how I met Garza. You know what I mean?
We are the voice of the underground.